This interview is being tape recorded and has taken place at Sherborne Police Station. I'm Sergeant 1639 Goodwin. The other police officer present is?
PC 1439 Andrews.
Thank you. I'm interviewing Mr. Ford. Can you give me your full name and your date of birth?
Graham John Ford, 19th of the 10th, 1969.
Thank you. And also present is the appropriate adult. If I could have your name and position, please.
Ian Exelby, social worker.
Thank you very much. In relation to the appropriate adult role, I must point out to you that you are not expected to act simply as an observer. Your first duty is to advise Mr. Ford and to observe whether or not the interview is being conducted properly and fairly. You are also here to facilitate communication with Graham Ford.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No other person is present. The date is the 17th of October 2012 and the time is 12:18 in the afternoon. At the conclusion of the interview, Graham, I'll give you a notice to explain what will happen to the tapes. Okay. In relation to legal advice, I must say to you, Graham, that you're not under arrest and you are not obliged to remain here. This is what we call a non-custodial interview. I must advise you that prior to being interviewed and at any time during the interview, you are entitled to free and independent legal advice, and that the interview can be delayed to obtain that advice. So if you change your mind, I can stop at any time if you need me to. Do you wish to seek legal advice at this time?
No, I don't.
Okay. We did discuss this before the interview, but I just have to ask, are there any reasons why you don't want to do that at the moment?
I don't know a reason to, currently.
Okay. I have to give you the caution, Graham. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Okay, I know that's a bit of a wordy legal caution. I need to explain that to you, which we do with everybody, to make sure that you understand exactly what that means. It means that you have the right not to say anything if you don't want to, but anything that you do say can be given in evidence. This means if you go to court, the court can be told what you've said. Okay? And lastly, if there's something you do not tell us now when we ask you questions, and later you decide to tell the court or tell the court something different, then the court may be less willing to believe you. Okay, so hopefully you understand what that caution means. Have you got any questions so far? I'm also going to explain why we're here in a moment, but have you got any questions in relation to the caution or any of that?
Will I be able to ask questions at any time?
Yes, of course you can. There are certain questions that I do need to go through, and there might be questions that take longer than others, but yes, of course you can ask questions and you can respond to anything that I'm talking about, okay? Right, Graham, the reason we're here is because Dorset Police received an email on the 16th of August 2012 which I believe is linked to yourself. Now I've got questions in relation to this email and questions I'm going to ask you, but before I go into all of the details, is there anything that you want to tell me first? No?
No.
Okay. Right, Graham, this email does relate to Sergeant Want, who used to be the sergeant here at Sherborne. He's now moved on. I understand that you know Mr. Want. Can you tell me something about how you know him, how long you have known Mr. Want?
I reported offences to the station, and Inspector Fry arranged an interview between myself and Sergeant Want to report those crimes.
Right.
That was in October 2009.
Right. And can you tell me what happened?
I produced documentary evidence of economic abuse by staff in my bank.
Right.
I had bank records quite accessibly, and he basically told me that they were never enough evidence, that nothing had happened, and I'm just trying to remember word for word, but he said that he wasn't going to do anything.
Right.
Even though I presented 4 incidents documented on bank records. Apart from the last incident, which actually affected my landlord.
Right.
I had rent, standing order that kept being returned into my bank account, and my landlord went overdrawn. But apart from that, the other items occurred just when I had to attend court or start legal proceedings, and they prevented me from contributing to the legal process, including an appeal at the Crown Court. Money vanished from my bank account, I couldn't travel there, and my appeal wasn't upheld, so it was damaging. Sergeant Want wouldn't even let me explain fully. He interrupted me and told me it was never evident enough, that it was all coincidence and banks make mistakes all the time, and he was just quite alarming and distressing. I went home without incident and made a complaint to the IPCC.
Right. And how was that resolved, or how was that left after you made that complaint?
Well, at the end of March 2010, I had an interview with Sergeant Helen Turner.
Right.
I told her what had happened, and she said that no crime had been committed, that crime doesn't exist, and then, pressing her, she said there was no crime category that the incident came into that they could come up with, to quote, and wouldn't uphold my complaint, sort of justified Sergeant Want's conduct.
Right.
Again, I produced the evidence that he didn't want to look at them.
Right. So, how did that leave your communication with Sergeant Want? Did it make things a little bit awkward?
To be honest, I've got a copy. I recorded my interview with Sergeant Turner.
Right.
And I've got a copy, if I can produce it now. First page of the transcript, and it's quite clear, talking to Sergeant Turner about Sergeant Want's conduct previously, that he'd been told not to provide service, because it wasn't his idea, was the line, because he was that ready to do it. He didn't look at any evidence, he didn't have to, he was ready to refuse minimum service under a victim's case.
So what's the paperwork you have here, Graham?
Well, I've got 1 or 2 bits and pieces if I need them, but as you mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
Well, I made a complaint before. I consciously approached the IPCC, and I didn't do that this time because they never upheld a complaint I've made, despite as much evidence as I could supply them with. I didn't make a conscious decision to do that, so I understand it's routine to go through their procedure, they give it back to you. Basically, I requested a police investigation and I was refused one. That's my aim. I don't expect to be refused that by anyone, and yet the procedure you employ means making a complaint against Sergeant Want, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't his idea to refuse that investigation. So I actually went in...
Who's written that, sorry, Graham?
This is what I said to Sergeant.
Well, that's what you said, yeah. Right, okay.
I'll repeat it if you want.
No, that's fine.
And yet the procedure you employ means making a complaint against Sergeant Want, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't his idea. So to complain against Sergeant Want won't solve my problem in that sense, yeah. It wasn't his idea to refuse that investigation because he was ready to do so before I showed him anything adequate.
Right. Thank you, Graham. So to clarify then, you came to speak with Sergeant Want in 2009, and you weren't happy with the way he dealt with it, so you made a complaint, and Sergeant Turner then dealt with it in 2010, but you still weren't happy.
I've got a lot to say about Sergeant Turner's conduct. She claims that the crime didn't exist and the crime category didn't exist.
Right.
And there is the Theft Act 1968.
Okay.
Now, I can make a private prosecution, being an either way offence, I'm pretty sure. I've got all the time in the world to make a private prosecution. And looking back on Sergeant Want's conduct and Sergeant Turner's conduct, quoting them as saying the Theft Act doesn't exist seems an extraordinary thing for a police officer to say under the specific circumstances of someone recording an evident crime. And that, is provocative in the long run, really. It's like all someone can expect to be robbed or whatever, and their police force not apprehend it.
Okay. So what are your feelings about Sergeant Want now at the present date then, since
my feelings don't come into it because that doesn't work in a court or whatever, but unless I ask permission. But like I said, in an instant it was obvious that Sergeant Want was ready to refuse the minimum service, and therefore he can do himself a favour by explaining where that came from.
Right. Okay.
But it wasn't taken up, and Sergeant Turner aggravated the situation.
Okay. Right, I
don't have anything with Sergeant Want other than, the implications of that conduct.
Okay, I do understand that there was some history, and thank you for going through that. As I said at the beginning of the interview, I do need to speak to you about a specific email. And the actual offence that I will be talking about is sending by public communication network an offensive message, and the date in question is the 16th of August. Do you use the internet at all, Graham?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And what do you use the internet for?
Nearly everything. I don't watch TV.
I see.
Programmes on iPlayer and whatever.
Oh, I see.
My hours aren't as bad as they used to be, but they're erratic, like some days would be finishing early and some days would be finishing late, so it's not like I can come home after 5 o'clock and sit down and watch TV.
And what do you do?
I listen to music and TV online.
Right, and why are your hours erratic?
I'm a delivery driver.
Right,
so
I see.
I'm not in the same location in one day, so...
I see, okay. So just to summarise then, you watch programmes on the internet, and what was the other thing you said?
I listen to music.
I listen to music. Okay.
Of an evening.
Is there anything else you use the internet for?
I've got a Facebook account.
Okay.
And a Twitter account, but I don't sit down and chat or anything. It's just nice to have one and leave messages for people when it's their birthday or whatever. Okay.
And do you use the internet as an email system so that you can send electronic letters to and from people?
Not as often as I should.
Right.
One thing, it'd be cheaper, but my email facility actually isn't working. I've got a virus.
Oh, have you?
And it's 40 quid a time, which is a bargain to get it fixed. And I've had 3 since I got my computer in 2009.
Right.
And it affects... somehow my Windows email has collapsed, but I do have a Yahoo account, but they never send messages.
Right.
That plays up as well.
Right. Graham, what email addresses do you use?
What email addresses do
Yes, because you have to have an address in order to send and receive emails.
I think if I was to use one, I would use my Yahoo account.
Right. And what is that, Graham? Would you tell me what your address is?
It's GRAEME.
GRAEME, yes.
FORD.
Yep.
ONE.
Yep.
At yahoo.co.uk.
Right. And how long have you had that address, Graham?
Probably since the beginning of 2009.
Oh, okay. So a few years then. And can you remember the last time you might have used that address to send anything?
To send anything, not to send anything.
Or to receive anything?
Well, I get spam every day. But
spam?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't we all? Yeah.
I don't use it much as a communicative.
Okay.
So I'm not in contact with many people. Everyone sort of on an informal basis is on Facebook.
Yes. Okay.
I use the phone at work. My company's got several branches across the south.
what's it called? Sorry, the company?
SK Sales, my employer, I should say.
Yeah. Okay. Do you use that internet address for your work purposes?
No.
Okay. Is there any reason why anybody else would be able to use your address?
I don't know. It's always hard to tell. On one hand, there's the issue of hacking. But on the other hand, more commonly, there's viruses and phishing. I've got records of my server. I get a message saying unidentified presence on your account.
Yes.
But it could be a virus that just opens one up, do you know what I mean, rather than someone in a room.
Yeah. Okay.
But having said that, anyone in a room would resemble something made by a virus without any effort, because the same pop-up would come out, you know.
Okay.
It's hard to tell, but I've had 3 viruses, like big ones. My specialist said, you get anti-spyware programs, and none of them work. It always has to remove them manually, and last time he had to rebuild my computer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I can't say exactly what's going on, but it's always his biggest job.
All right, thank you for that, Graham. I'm just going to summarise what we spoke about so far, because we've talked about quite a lot. So we've talked about your work a little bit, and the fact that you're a delivery driver, and that unfortunately you haven't been very happy with the way that Sergeant Want and Sergeant Turner dealt with you between 2009 and 2010 in relation to your allegations that you were a victim of a theft. And that we've spoken about the fact that you use the internet to watch television and listen to music, and that you sometimes use your internet address, which you've confirmed to me is grahamford1@yahoo.co.uk, and you've used that address since 2009, and sometimes you have had viruses on your computer. So is that fair to sum up what we've talked about so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Graham, I've got some specific information that I need to go into, and I'm going to ask you questions about, which does relate to the offence that I'm talking to you about today. And I'll just tell you again, it's to send a public communication network, to send a message via public communication, an offensive message. So Graham, on the 16th of August of this year, at 23:33 hours, so that's just after 11:30 in the evening, an email was sent to the address called .inquiries. .inquiries is the address for Dorset Police Inquiry Centre, and that's an address that is available to the public to send in inquiries, and then we will deal with those inquiries. So at that time, the following email said that the name was Graham, spelled Graeme, and then there's a space for a comment or question, and I'm going to read exactly what the comment says, word for word, okay? It says, Sergeant Jed Want is a sex offender, and his continued aiding and abetting of sexual offenders justifies reasonable force against him and them in accordance with the Sexual Offenders Act 2003, gets them off. The email address that relates to this message is grahamford1@yahoo.co.uk. Graham, please can you tell me if you sent that message on the 16th of August to Dorset Police?
I don't want to answer that question today.
Okay. Is there any reason why you don't want to answer that, Graham?
I don't think I can't answer that either.
You can't answer it?
No, I don't want to answer it.
You don't want to answer it?
No.
Okay. I'm still going to have to ask you questions, Graham, because this is very important, obviously, and the email suggests certain things, and I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? It's up to you whether you comment or not. That's what I explained at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say again, Graham, did you send that email to Dorset Police on the 16th of August?
No comment.
Okay. When you sent that message, what did you mean by the comment, Sergeant Jed Want is a sex offender?
No comment.
And what did you mean by the comment, his continued aiding and abetting of sexual offenders justifies reasonable force against him and them?
I don't wish to answer that question.
Okay. What did you mean by get them off?
No comment.
Graham, the email address relating to this email is exactly the same address that you told me that you have used since 2009. Did you send this email?
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Graham, I know that it's August, and I appreciate it's a lot. It's a couple of months ago now. Can you remember what you were doing on the 16th of August?
Well, I can say I didn't know when the message was received by dot inquiry.
23:33. So it's
I don't know
just
anything about the receiving of it. I couldn't know. I didn't know when it had been sent. I can't remember exactly what I was doing in mid-August.
Okay, that's a fair comment.
Graham,
Oh, Mark.
have you ever contacted dot inquiries as per Sergeant Goodwin's question earlier?
I'm not answering that question.
How many computers have you got at your home address that you've got access to?
Just one.
Just one. And how long have you had that computer?
Since March or April, maybe May 2009.
And where is that computer?
Where is it?
Now?
In my bedroom.
In your bedroom. Has any work been done on that computer at all since the alleged sending of that email to Sergeant Want, or dot inquiry, sorry?
No.
And no work whatsoever by any computer expert. Who has got, Graham, who has got access to that computer?
Only me.
Only yourself. Graham, does anyone else know your email address?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Has anyone ever used your email address?
I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd have to say that I have initially contacted the police about improper practices.
How was that contact made, Graham?
Well, something you mentioned previously about my meeting with Sergeant Want. That's what I'm referring to.
Do you mean in 2009? No. Can you tell me what you mean?
The meeting I had with Sergeant Want at this police station, in 2009.
Right.